Hey everyone, welcome back to Classic Mini DIY. Today we're going to be tackling the remainder of the Driveshaft repair job that I started about a week ago. I have gotten the parts in from 7 Mini Parts. I got the new nylon cup system. So as you can see, we've got brand new nylon cups. We've got the centerpiece as well as all of the bearings inside these nylon cups. So if I take this off, there you can see a fully functioning bearing on the end of this cross joint here. So all we have to do today is reinstall these U-joints and get the car back rolling again. Now if you've been following along with the channel, I had an odd jobs video come on recently and I actually had to replace the wheel cylinders on my car. Now I'm not sure if this video is going to get released before that wheel cylinder gets repaired or after that wheel cylinder gets repaired. So if that video already came out, you should see it pop up in one of the corners here. If it hasn't, well, sneak peek, that's what's coming up. But for those of you who weren't there for the live stream or the disassembly video, what happened was I was driving my car and one of these joints failed. Most likely a nut came off of one of these U-joints and then ultimately loosened itself up, the whole system loosened itself up and then fell to pieces while the car was rolling. As you can imagine, that was pretty exciting. It was quite loud. Luckily, it didn't really do any damage to the surrounding parts of the drive shaft, but it did destroy one side of the drive system. Now, when replacing something that has an identical part on the other side of the car, I generally recommend replacing both at the same time. That way you get the same amount of wear on both of them. If the brake cylinder videos come out before this one, you've heard this whole spiel already if you've watched that. But if not, the main reason I say that is so that things wear evenly on the car. That'll help you in the sense that in the event of a failure, you'll know with pretty good certainty that the other side or the other part on the other side of the car is probably going to fail soon or is going to at least have some sort of problem very soon. But that's enough jibber jabber for this video. If you're interested in how these joints go together and how this whole system works, check out the first video, which should be popping up in a corner here. That will explain how the U-bolt and the U-joint system works on this car, so you have a better understanding if you have this type of system on your car. But let's get into the car. Hopefully I can get you guys a good shot while I reinstall one of these sides. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get both. We'll see. Let's head out there. Okay, so here we are underneath the car again, and before we get started, let me express to you guys that this was quite literally the hardest shot I've ever had to try and get on the car, but I'm under the car now, and we're looking at the driver's side, and in my case, that is the right side of the car. This is a little bit more open, so I'll be able to show you guys exactly how to connect all this stuff up. The passenger side, or the left side on my car, is much tighter and much harder to get into and get everything clamped into, which you'll find out if you have this system here. Now, when you do a job like this, it's a good idea to take a look at all of the rubber gating and all of the kind of surrounding items to make sure that nothing else is leaking or having any problems. In this case, my drive shafts, the output flanges are fine. They aren't leaking. Also, sorry in advance for the kids in the back. I'm sure that's pretty loud. But the output flanges are fine, there's no leaking around those. The pin right here is good, this is all intact. And then on this side, this rubber gator down here is in good shape, as well as the output flange on this side is looking good. Now, to get started, you're gonna have to put your yoke in between these two clamps, and they'll have to be offset like this once everything's all put together. But for right now, if it's easier, you can just kind of rotate this stuff around. I have my car in neutral. And when your car's in neutral, when you spin one of these one direction, the other side is going to go the opposite direction, which is totally normal. But you can rotate both of these. It's good to have your wheel off the ground because when you rotate this, it's actually going to spin your wheel. So that's an important thing to note. If your wheel can't spin, you aren't going to be able to spin this piece either. Also, you'll see this can move in and out. And the reason that can move in and out is because the joint here is meant to extend and retract as the wheel spins and goes full speed. So let's get that yoke and we'll put it in here and we can take a look at what it'll look like with one side clamped together. All right, so there we go. We've got one in. Now all I've got to do is repeat this process on every single one of these nylon cups. Now what you didn't see was me going back and forth and tightening and clamping down these U-bolts, because these don't always come the right size to slide through this end here. It just takes some trial and error. You got to go back and forth and make sure that you can get everything fitting the way it should. Now one other thing, as you start to get these clamps down and on where they should be, it's a good time to go ahead and start setting the nuts on the ends of these U-bolts. Because if you don't, things will start to kind of fall apart as you're spinning this around, attempting to connect all the other ones in. Now something that I'll be putting on these screw ends this time, which I did not do last time, was blue thread locker. I'm hoping that this time things will get held together properly. These nuts are also the nylon lock nuts, so that should help as well. These are the ones that come in the kit from 7 Mini Parts, but I'm going to add some blue Loctite just in case and get it applied to these screws. Now you don't want to fully tighten these down right now. You want a little bit of play. It's going to help you attach the rest of the U-bolts, but you can at least get these things kind of just a little tight here so they're not just a little snug. And if you can, try and tighten these things down kind of evenly. You're not going to want to put too much torque on one side over the other. That way everything gets tightened down nice and at an even rate. Now one thing you may find happens is these little nylon cups will fall off, and sometimes those pins that are inside these nylon cups will fall out. The important thing is that you, one, don't lose those pins, they're very important, and then two, replace those pins so that this nylon cup can slide back onto the U-joint and make this union still happen here. So in this case, this fell off and one of the pins became dislodged. I stuck the pin back up to the side and rolled it around so that all the pins inside this nylon cup are now up against the sides of the inside of that metal bearing. Now I can take this and reattach it to this joint. All right, so now we're down to the last U-bolt. I'm gonna go ahead and put thread locker on this one and tighten those screws down. And then at this point, you can actually go around and fully tighten down all of these joints. All right, so that pretty much wraps up this episode and the kind of how-to on how to replace the U-joint or the yoke-style joint on your Classic Mini. The hardest part you're going to run into is getting those U-bolts around those nylon cups. And if you're using the rubber joint, the old-fashioned kind, that's equally difficult. Getting those U-bolts around there is just something that's not very fun, takes a lot of hand strength and kind of just pushing and prying. A pry bar does help if you can get leverage underneath there, but this is one of those jobs that is really going to make you wish you had a lift for your car if you don't have one. The only thing I didn't mention was the torque spec for those U-bolts, because I couldn't remember it while I was underneath the car and I had to look it up in my Haynes manual to just double check to make sure. But for those U-bolts, you're going to be looking at about 8 to 12 foot-pounds of torque, or about 11 to 16 Newton meters of torque. That'll get you to the right torque spec, it won't over tighten it, and it'll make it safe for operation. So if you're doing that on your car, just make sure that you're torquing it to the right spec. But that's it for Classic Mini DIY. Make sure you guys smash that like. I'm just kidding, I don't say that kind of crap. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, if you have any questions at all, please post them in the comment section below. I'll be happy to help you out in any way I can. It doesn't have to be about this type of driveshaft system. I'm happy to help you with a different kind if you have questions. But until the next video, enjoy those minis and motor on.